the structure of this, I've got maybe like a 20-minute presentation or so that's going to go over pretty much the application process. The application process at Oxford is a little bit different, certainly from other universities in the world. You know, we're very different to like an American college system, but also amongst other UK universities. We all use UCAS as our primary application system, but there's just a few things to be aware of when thinking about your application to the university to be aware of now. So I'm going to go over the whole application process, and then we'll start thinking about what you can do now and what your children and what the students can do now to start thinking about their applications and really make it as competitive as possible. So one of the first things we always say to all of our students is that when your child is applying to be honest, any university, we always say the most important decision is the course choice itself. Why it's even more particular so at Oxford is that, one, we are a very academic university, we have particularly high tariffs. It's our kind of mission. We are looking for the best students across the world, regardless of their background or origin, anything to do with that. We typically expect our students to work hard. We do expect them to attend all their lectures, their seminars, do everything that they need to do. And as I said, it's a very kind of academic course program. We tend to give it the 8-8-8 rule, that's what we say. So we would expect our students to spend 8 hours studying per day, and if they're young, healthy young people, we would expect them to have about 8 hours sleep a day, and then they've got 8 hours to do everything else they want to do. So 8 hours a day studying. If your child enjoys that, and they're excited by the prospect of that kind of individualised style of learning where they can really get in depth with the subject, then Oxford might be the university for them. How that relates to course choice is that university is also supposed to be an amazing, exciting, and enjoyable time in a young person's life. And they are, as they'll be spending the next at least 3, 4, 5, 6 years if they go on to a medicine course, doing that every day, they will just enjoy their time at university and they will do better, they will succeed better on course if they genuinely love the subject that they're studying. So we've got a wide range of courses to choose from. If you haven't already, I'd definitely recommend having a look at the website just so that there's a mute symbol in front of it, but the course page on the website lists all of our courses. The best place to look for all information is on there. You can see all of the courses we offer, all of the entrance requirements, all of the admissions tests we require, how to prepare for interviews, things like that. But there's some really good things on there. Talking about course choices in general, so this is a kind of slide that shows the popularity of some of our courses amongst international students. So you can see our top 5 courses are PPE, so philosophy, politics and economics, economics and management, mathematics, law and medicine. You can see PPE, we receive about 6,000 international applicants per year, and then medicine, it kind of goes down to 3,000. On the right, these are perhaps some other courses that a lot of people don't actually know we offer. These courses are so oversubscribed that it does introduce that extra element of competition, right? So my general advice is always for the student to choose the course that they are generally most interested in, what they feel they can succeed in the most, and what they enjoy studying. So if any of your children are interested in these subjects and they enjoy the supercurricular activities, they are reading about it, they're doing well in their schoolwork, definitely encourage them to apply for one of these. If, on the other hand, they look down some of the other courses, like biomedical sciences, it's one of our joint courses, computer science and philosophy, history and economics, earth sciences. If that's something that you feel will appeal to your child, then encourage them to have a look at that option. And you can just notice the application numbers. So earth sciences, we roughly receive about 2,000 applications per year from international students, compared to PPE, which is 6,000. So that level of competition, there's a discrepancy between them two. But it's just something worth thinking about the courses that are super oversubscribed. This is a particularly boring slide, but it's quite important. Course fees for international students, so that we charge overseas rates. Essentially, there are 2 costs associated with applying to the University of Oxford, or any UK university. So these can generally be split up between the course fees and the living costs. Your course fees is going to vary on the subject that you choose, and your living cost is going to vary on the lifestyle of the student. If they want to go out and eat at restaurants every single night, if they want a deluxe room with an ensuite, it's obviously going to be a bit more money. But you can typically expect to pay anywhere between £28,950 and £44,240 for your course fees It's going to depend on the course itself, whether there are any field trips abroad, whether there are any overseas travel, whether there's any work placements, things like that. And then living costs, we estimate it for this year, for 2023 to 2024, to be between 11,600 and 16,500. So in total, per year, you're looking at anywhere between 40,560 and 60,800 pounds. And I've got the dirham equivalent in there as well. So just something to be aware of. We'll touch on kind of scholarships and bursaries towards the end, but that's always an important piece of information when considering any UK university, really. Okay, so now we get onto the main bit, applying to the University of Oxford. As I said at the beginning, the University of Oxford is a little bit different to most UK universities. The main thing to remember is that our application process starts much earlier. So our deadline for submission for this year is the 16th of October. Most of the UK universities will be sometime in January. And the reason why we have it so much earlier is the same with Cambridge and some other law schools as well. But the reason we always say that we have it much earlier is because there is so many other steps in it. Remember, we are looking for the best students in the world and we need to assess that. So 16th of October, well actually, I'll show you the timeline. This is kind of a handy little graph that kind of shows a timeline of things that you will have to go through, your student will have to go through in order to make a competitive application. But depending on what stage they're in at their school career, there is lots of things above this point I can talk about as well. So just to run through it just very briefly, what they can do now, they can choose their course. Best way to do that, look at the course website, see what we offer, look at the syllabuses, look at the entrance requirements, think about what they're studying in school now, what they're excelling at, what they enjoy the most, what they enjoy doing outside of school the most that is related to that course, and choose a course that is perfect for them, that they're going to love studying and they're going to excel at. Second option is to either choose a college or to make an open application. For those of you who don't know, Oxford University does not have a central campus. You cannot go to Oxford and say, this is the University of Oxford. Instead, we are made up of colleges, which are essentially student hubs. But I'll talk a bit about those a little bit later on. So that's what they can start doing now. October the 16th, submit your UCAS application. Again, UCAS application is something that all UK universities use, so it'll become very familiar if you're using UCAS, but remember the deadline's much earlier. Your UCAS application is where students are going to put in their predicted grades, they're going to put in their personal statements, any kind of contextual information they may have. That's where we're going to get their academic reference, so their reference from their teachers as well. Most of our courses will require them to sit an admissions test, and these generally, you have to register for them by the 29th of September, and these will generally kind of take place around October, November time. Some of our courses also require some written work to be assessed. These are generally for the more kind of humanities-based subjects, ones that involve a lot of essay writing. We want to be able to assess that your child is proficient and good enough to be writing, essays that that we feel will benefit them in their education. Once we then use all that information. That's our kind of initial set of information which we then use to assess our applications. We typically receive about 25,000 applications across the whole university for undergraduate courses per year, so there's a lot of applications to kind of go through, and our tutors read every single one of them. So once we've got that, we then shortlist our candidates. If a student is successful to be shortlisted, we then invite them to an interview. Now, for the last 4 years since the COVID pandemic, all of our interviews have been online. I can't see that changing for the next year, but it's always worth just having a look. We will let the student know as soon as we know, but I can't see it changing. I think they will be online this year. Interviews, we'll talk a little about interviews a bit later on. And then once your child has been successful in their interview, we will then make them a decision in January. So by all that point, we let students know if they're successful or not in January. Other UK universities, that's when you'll be submitting your UCAS application. But again, the reason I like to think we do that as well, or what it helps with, is because we do have high tariffs, and we will make your child an offer on the basis that they achieve a certain grade requirements in their A-levels or their international baccalaureate or whatever it is they're studying. We want them to work kind of solidly for the next, however many months until their final examinations, just to focus completely on their exams and get the best possible marks that they can, so that they're able to hit those targets and then attend university with us in the following October. So once they have their exam results, whenever that is, they will get the results. Providing they've met the offer, we will say, congratulations, we will see you in Oxford in October. And then, the whole lot of steps to go on after that, but that's what to do with kind of onboarding and welcoming to the university. So that's a very brief overview of the Oxford application process. As you can see, it's a little bit different, but there's no tricks. We're not trying to kind of trick students out, especially not at the interviews or anything like that. We want to be as transparent as possible to parents, to students, to counsellors and teachers, so that everyone is as best prepared for submitting an application to the university. We'll go through some of the steps in a little bit kind of closer detail. Entrance requirements here at the university, they typically range anywhere from AAA at A level to A star, A. If you're studying international baccalaureates, that would be between 38 and 40, and we'd like 6s and 7s in higher level subjects. These are typically going to be subjects that are associated with the course you're studying. For example, if you're studying geography, we'd expect you to get a higher level subject in geography. Things like that. We do accept a wide range of other international qualifications, but if your children are at this school, then yes.
Okay, Mr. Interrupt.
Of course.
Would you be able to share this with me and I can share it with parents?
I absolutely can. Yes, of course. Yeah. After this, I'll send Joe the slides.
Excuse me. Can
Yes.
I have a question on later?
I can do quick questions now, but we'll have a big one.
Sorry,
Oh.
if you don't, I'm really apologise.
Okay,
Wait
so I
till
will
the
write.
end.
Okay, no worries. Of
And then
course,
we've
yeah.
got the questions that parents have asked.
Yes,
We'll do
brilliant.
this time,
Okay.
just because of the fashion show, James.
Of course. Yeah. No problem.
Parents have just arrived, they will not be forced to go in the fashion show. That's later on. So,
English language requirements as well, so it's just worth noting that all overseas students will be asked to provide proficiency in English language. Our most common ways of doing this is by either an IELTS or a TEFL score. There are some exceptions as well. Again, if your children are at Jumeirah College, you don't need to worry about it. One of the exceptions is that if your child is taught in English, then that's fine. We will accept that as evidence that they are academically capable of English. So I wouldn't worry about that, but it's something just to be aware of. So I'm going to go through the UCAS application. I mentioned how to choose a college. What is a college? Colleges are essentially just student hubs. They are where colleges live, where they'll eat, where they'll sleep, where they'll be assigned their personal tutor that will guide them through their academic journey. They'll have their tutorials there as well. So they'll use their library, and it's where they're going to form their immediate social circles. There are as many reasons to choose a college as there are students. We get asked all the time, what is the best college? And to be honest, it depends which student you ask, because they will always say, my college is the best. No, my college is the best. So, I know students that chose particular colleges because they prefer the food there. The best way to choose a college is to choose for the student to choose whatever is right for them. If they are able to visit Oxford, have a look around. Most of our colleges are very, very welcoming. If you just go to the Porter's Lodge and say, I'm a prospective student, I'd love to have a look around. The college and the grounds and some of the facilities, they'll be happy to show you around. Or they all have amazing websites as well. Some of them have got kind of virtual tours, and you can kind of get a sense of the ethos behind them. If you want to live in a college that's been built in the early 1600s and kind of looks like a huge castle, there's the options for that as well. If you want to live in a college that's perhaps a bit more modern, although for Oxford modern is about 1800s, then there's options for that as well. So things you might want to think about: the size and age of the college, the location, whether it's in the city centre or kind of on the outskirts a little bit, the accommodation options. I mentioned earlier that there are obviously the costs reflected with accommodation is going to be dependent on what the accommodation is, if they want an ensuite room, if they're catered, self-catered, things like that. Any grants or other funding. Some of the colleges will have their own grants and other funding, scholarships, bursaries, which are kind of separate from the university but are distributed out by individual colleges, so have a look at those as well. And the facilities as well. Some of them have huge sports facilities, some of them will have computer labs, some of them will have a specific section of their library dedicated to a particular topic. That's the kind of thing I would recommend choosing how to choose a college. But just know it doesn't make any difference to your application at all. If you don't actually know which college you want to apply to, you can just submit an open application, and then we will decide for you. We will allocate you where there is space or where we think you'll be a good fit. So that's another part of the UCAS form. So remember, on your UCAS form, you've got your course choice, your grades, choose a college, and your personal statement as well. Now, one of the key things that we value about an Oxford education, and we think kind of sets us apart from, again, lots of other universities around the world, is our personalised form of learning. So in addition to your lectures, your seminars, your lab work, and everything else that a student goes to, they will also have tutorials. These will be with a personal academic tutor that is assigned to them at the start of their academic journey. And it's essentially just small group teaching. It could be one-to-one, it could be kind of small group of 2 or 3. They're essentially ways to guide your child through their academic journey, to discuss what they've learned about in lectures or seminars, discuss further reading. Perhaps they might set them essays, they might set them problem sheets to work through, but none of it is particularly graded at all. Like, you wouldn't get a final grade from the tutorials. It's there specifically just to guide the student along the journey and get them to think a bit more, get them to think about their subject and everything else that comes with it. And what I want to kind of get from this is that the style of teaching at Oxford is very personal, and the personal statement is the first thing we see from a student that is about that student. It's the personal statement. We see a lot of numbers on spreadsheets, and we see lots of grades and extracurricular activities and things like that. The personal statement is really important for us because we like to hear about what the student has been studying in their school, what they've been doing outside of their school, their supercurricular activities, what they kind of hope to kind of get out studying at university, kind of things like that. So this is kind of just some information on the personal statement. Key thing to take away from anything from this presentation is that the application process at Oxford, what we look for is 90% academic. We are looking, it's predominantly academic. We are looking for a student's ability to think, the ability to learn, how they cope well with kind of new pieces of information, what they've been doing in their schoolwork. So we always recommend that personal statement, keep it about 80% academic, including any supercurricular things, and then about 20% extracurricular. If you're running out of room, but you probably won't because you're only about 6,000 characters or so. So that's the UCAS form. That's what you initially submit. We'll talk about admissions tests. Here we go. So as I said earlier, most of our courses will also ask students to sit an admissions test. Not all of them, but most of them do. And why do we use them, first of all? As I said, we get thousands and thousands of applications. We're looking for the best students in the world, and we need ways to differentiate them. So this is one thing it does that. So we can already see what students are predicted in their A-levels or their IBs or whatever it is they're studying. This is a test that is set by Oxford that we're able to assess a student based on the test that we set. Everyone in the world will sit exactly the same test regarding, this fits the same academic admissions test. So it's a common data source for us to be able to evaluate from. Reduces the need to solely rely on predicted grades. Another thing at a lot of UK universities that we're going to ask for predicted grades, which aren't always 100% kind of accurate, but at least that gives another piece of information. Common set of data and the aptitude and potential of applicants. That runs through our whole application process. You have to register for the admissions tests yourselves, although your schools will generally help the student kind of help them with that. The application deadline is the 29th of September for this year. And usually it's kind of done through the British Council, but I'm sure Joe and the other councils and teachers will have more information on how to set that up. Right, how to prepare for admissions tests. We've got lots and lots of evidence that shows that people who properly prepare for admissions tests do better in them. It's worth noting that there's no pass marks in lots of our admissions tests. It kind of all depends on the cohort this year. So we get lots of students asking to see, well, can I see what mark I got? Well, we can show you that on some of our tests, but it's not going to mean anything to you. It could, 40% could either be really high or it could be really low. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that these tests are designed to be hard. They're designed to be potentially one of the hardest tests that the students has ever sat until that point. And we've got to throw at them new pieces of information. We want to see how they think, and we want to see how they handle new pieces of information and the context around it. Even though they're tests that you can't really revise for, you can definitely prepare for them. There's lots of information on our website, and I'll share the links and everything to do with the tests on our website there. Generally, the way it kind of works is that you kind of split them into 2 types of tests. So science tests and some of our language tests, they do require a level of knowledge. Obviously, if you're applying for modern languages, you have to be able to speak the language, have an academic understanding of the language you're applying to, and understand the grammar rules, things like that. Science, formulas and things like that. Essentially everything. It's not going to be they're mainly going to be focused on what is already covered in the A-level or the IB curriculum. So long as they kind of revise that, they should be able to, apply that to the questions in the tests. And then humanities-based courses, so English, history, again, some of the other language papers, practice of similar exercises is useful as well. So kind of essay writing, drawing on themes, providing point and then evidencing it is really useful. How to construct an argument is really, really useful for that as well. So that's the kind of information I've got there. The top tip I've got for that is to look at the past papers on the website. Lots of our tests have lots and lots of past papers and sit them under time conditions as well. We get a lot of students that will know a test inside and out because they've read through the past papers, but they haven't timed themselves. So when it comes to the the actual tests themselves, then realise they're halfway through and then the bell will go. So it's important to test yourself. For the TSA, for example, a lot of that is just, there is a section where it is just multiple choice. So it's not only a test of how you think and how your logical skills are, but also a test of how fast you can think. So practice doing up to time conditions as well. That's really, really important. Written work, we'll let you know if your course requires written work. Again, it's mainly for the humanities-based subjects where we'll ask you to provide a sample, usually a recent piece of work in your in a student's schoolwork, but the deadline is usually around the 10th of November. And then interviews as well. There we go. So, right. Why do we interview in the first place? We've looked at that piece of information and then we shortlist. We invite students to interview. As I said, they're probably going to be online again for this year. Why do we interview? The best way I can describe an interview is a mock tutorial. We are looking for students that are going to thrive in the Oxford academic system. I'll be the first to admit that perhaps an Oxford teaching style isn't for everyone. I meet lots of students who I feel maybe a kind of education where they maybe go to a large university and they just have to sit in a lecture hall and absorb knowledge might be a better way for them to learn. But if they feel that they are excited by that kind of prospect of having a personal tutor that's there to push them in their academic journey, then that's exactly what we can offer at the University of Oxford. And the interview is exactly a replication of the interview process. So it's going to assess a student's interest in their academic subject, their supercurricular work. It might throw at them some problems or examples and just kind of see how their logical mind works to draw on new information. And of course, whether they benefit to our interview process. This kind of thing here kind of shows that we have a holistic approach to our admissions process. And this is what we use to make our final decisions. So, we look at their academic achievement, how they've done in their tests, their written work, their personal statement, their school reference, and then the interviews is kind of like the final bit to kind of bring it all together. And then at the end of it, we will hopefully think, wow, this person, we're really impressed with their application, and we really feel that they would benefit from the style of teaching we can offer at Oxford. But remember, it's just one part of the process. Lots of students come away feeling, oh no, that interview was awful. I didn't know what to say, and it was really difficult, and they asked me lots of kind of questions I've never really thought about before. That is completely fine. They're kind of designed to be that way. They're designed to push students in a way that they've never been pushed academically before. The best way for students to kind of prepare for them is just to remember that this is an academic conversation with an Oxford tutor, someone who is devoting their life at the moment to furthering the study of that current subject. So if a student looks at it as a really exciting opportunity to have a conversation with someone who loves their subject just as much as they do, then that's a better way to kind of go into it and just enjoy the process a little bit more. But also remind them to kind of show off their academic learning, what they've done in school, what they've done outside, and things like that as well. So the 4 things we're looking for in an interview, it's not like a tick box we're looking for. You generally get a sense of a candidate while we're interviewing. Their academic ability and potential for future learning. Their self-motivation. This is where supercurricular activities come in really importantly. I'm sure you've heard lots about those already. Their ability to think independently and their engagement with new ideas. I'll breeze through these final few slides. Once we've kind of pulled all that information together, we'll then make a decision. That will usually be in January time. So what can you do now to help your child prepare? So there's lots you can do now and leading up to your child's kind of application to the university, if this is something they want to do, to help them kind of grow in their subject and to support their application. We've kind of just put some basic bullet points down here. First one is, of course, is to work hard. The 2 things our students at Oxford have in common is that one is they're really good at their subject, and 2, they really enjoy their subjects. So this, the first 2 shouldn't really come as something that's particularly too difficult. It should be something that comes naturally to lots of students anyway. So we want them to work hard. We set rather high tariffs comparatively to other universities, so we want them to achieve the best grades they can. To go beyond their schoolwork, really, really important. Look at supercurricular resources. You familiar with supercurricular, what I mean when I say that? So the best way I can describe it is you kind of think of 3 levels. You've got your curricular work, which is everything the student does in their school. Their extracurricular work, which is everything they do outside of school, kind of like hobbies, pastimes, things like that. And then their supercurricular is everything they do outside of their school that is directly related to their actual subject. And that's what we're particularly looking for. Try not to confuse it with extracurricular. An example of this is, say your child is perhaps captain of the soccer team and they're applying for physics. Absolutely brilliant. You know, we encourage you to play soccer. There is lots of opportunities to play soccer at the University of Oxford, but that tells us absolutely nothing about why you might be a brilliant physicist. If, on the other hand, they were doing lots of active reading about physics, if they joined the physics club at school, if they're doing their own kind of independent projects, that's exactly the type of self-motivation and supercurricular activities that we're looking for. It's worth noting there is nowhere in the application form, in the UCAS form, to list these down, other than the personal statement, and then to reference it in the interviews as well. So think about ways that they can tie that into their application. Practice for tests and interviews as well. Past papers are really, really important. Have a look at those. Some of our tests have lots of other resources, how to prepare more generally for them as well. Something else that we offer in the international recruitment team at Oxford is our monthly series of student webinars. We run a webinar every month for both teachers and counsellors, but also for prospective international students. They're completely free to attend. We run them at 4 different times throughout the day to cater to different time zones. And we tend to talk about whatever is coming up in the application process at that point, just so they're a bit more prepared and we can engage with them as well before their application. We'll be dedicating all of the months of September through to November on admissions tests, interview preparation, things like that. So definitely encourage them to attend those. I'll send the details to Joe on how to apply to those. So I've whizzed through that presentation very, very quickly. There's lots and lots of information on our website if you haven't seen it already. General kind of international student support there, information for families or kind of supporters of our students there, general information on applying, test resources, and also interview resources as well. Do take a photo of that screen if you like, and I will send. I'll send some information to Joe as well. But I think we've got about 10, 15 minutes for questions.
Okay, James, to begin with,
Yeah.
those of you who wrote a bit after when we introduced the structure of the session, are you okay, James, first of all, just to address some of the questions
Yes,
the
of
parents
course.
asked in advance?
Yes.
And then we'll go to the room. So all the parents who have asked questions are here. I've been
brilliant.
and I've shared with James, and I think if we address those first, then in the room.
Good idea.
Only because we do have to finish.
Okay, I'm going to go through these.
And then there's the opportunity for, if there are any questions that you'd like your children to ask, so James is available during lunchtime for first school or upstairs in the sixth form. That's been shared on the careers classroom. But there's nothing wrong with also prompting your children independently to come up and ask their questions. And then there will be a Year 12 assembly for parents today for any parents.
Got a busy morning. But this is what I'm looking forward to. Okay, so thanks to Joe for sending over the questions. Thank you for submitting them beforehand. I'm just going to run through them. So question number 1 was, what's the acceptance rate for computer science and engineering? I don't know off the top of my head. Typically, we receive about 10 applications for every student. 10 applications for every place you have. So if you go onto our website and go onto the course pages, you can see a detailed breakdown of this is the application rate of that particular course. So I'd recommend going and have a look there. Typically across the university, it's about 10 to 1. But what I don't want students to think about is to think of those in terms of odds. Don't think, I've only got 1 in 10 chance of making a successful application. It's their job now to strengthen their application, to submit the best application that they possibly can. And if they can do that, then the likelihood is that those odds are going to be much less. It's not a question of odds, it's about showing to us that they would benefit from the Oxford style of education.
James, would you like me to ask you the questions?
Yeah,
from here?
that'd be a good idea.
What's the key attributes you look for in a student apart from academic grades? I mean, you've covered a number of
Yeah, so apart from academic grades, it's tricky because, as I said, the vast majority of our application is looking at academic stuff. So outside of academic grades, intellectual curiosity, kind of self-motivation to go out and explore their subjects beyond their schoolwork is really, really important. Again, supercurricular stuff is absolutely great, but don't get too bogged down in it. Just kind of always, whatever you kind of talk about in a personal statement or in an interview, always bring it back to your application and why that makes you a brilliant candidate for that particular subject. That's the best answer I can give on that.
Makes sense. And I think this one's linked to the holistic
Yeah.
information you shared. If a student gets straight A's or meets or is above your conditional requirements, then do they automatically get invited for an interview?
No. So the grade boundaries showed that are the AAA to the A star, A. They are our minimum requirements. Remember, by the interview stage, we already have a lot of data. So we've got their predicted grades, we have their personal statement, we've got their teacher reference, and we'll have their admissions test as well. And we look at all of that information together, and then decide if we want to shortlist. We may have a student who has, all A stars and all of their things, but they've written an absolutely dreadful personal statement. They've got an awful reference from their teacher, and they've failed miserably in the test. We're not going to offer them an interview as such. So, kind of, we look at it all together before we make our time.
Thank you, James. Is it advisable for a student to do this step as an extra to support an application? For example, if they're applying for economics?
So, so we do recognise step qualifications. It's a little bit tricky. We're not going to make an offer based on a step qualification. We will only ever make an offer on the 3 A levels or whatever the prescribed thing is if it's a different qualification. But I'll just focus on A levels. Let's say, for example, your child is doing their 3 A levels and they're predicted. So the offer they need is 3 A's, but they decide to do their 3 A levels and then a step qualification. Brilliant. If they can still meet those 3 A's. If it's taken up a lot of their time and maybe they're falling behind on their other subjects and they get an A, a B, and are passing their step qualification, then they haven't met the 3 A's and we won't be able to make them an offer. But then on the other hand, if they can meet those, then it can be a boost to kind of talk about in the personal statement and in the interview, and just on the UPass form as well. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. So if you feel your child can comfortably meet the entrance requirements, then it can be a boost. But if it's to the detriment of their other scores, then I generally wouldn't recommend it.
That's really helpful, James. That's a conversation of similar questions along that line that I get through a lot. Thank you. Questions that are slightly different to ones that you've already addressed. Can you please give us specific information for our child who would like to apply to a PPE course?
Specifically, I'm not a PPE myself, but I can tell you a little bit about the course. So it's a 3-year course. It's quite a unique course. It stands for philosophy, politics, and economics. And it's essentially a combination of those 3 kind of topics and looking at the way, think about it in kind of terms of society, kind of how societies are managed, kind of how societies kind of function and how they are administrated. So the way the kind of course works is that generally students will start off studying all 3, but then by their final year, and then especially by the dissertation time, lots of our students have kind of narrowed down to just 1 or 2 of them. In terms of the entrance requirements and kind of things like that, I'd recommend going and have a look at the website, just because it's got all of the most up-to-date information on it. And I can send more specific information about that.
Thank you, James. And to help James along that line, there are a number of questions asking for specific A levels in relation to specific courses, and you can find that on the Oxford website and also on Plymouth Rock, which all of your students, all of your children use regularly. Please reach out to me, I think, to skip through those. Any suggestion, and I think this is possibly what you were saying, starting to say about supercurricular suggestions for a parent looking to support their child to develop a profile that would be appropriate for Oxford from year 9?
Yeah, so if they're in year 9, they've got lots of time to build their supercurricular activities, things like that. It might be a bit trickier now because they're a little bit young, but I would generally recommend it to focusing on a specific course area that they want to go into. If they've already chosen a course they want to apply to at university, brilliant, you can kind of focus on that. And then build their supercurricular activities around that topic. Like I said, if you are, if it's something not particularly related, brilliant, like kind of do that. for students' well-being, but perhaps wouldn't use it in the actual application itself. Like I said, if you're doing physics, there's also kind of physics clubs or maths Olympiads for PPE or economics or kind of things like that. History and politics. Model UN is a really brilliant one we have. That lots of students do. Anything that is related to their subject that they can talk about in their interview is a really brilliant.
That's really good, James. And actually, I also say to students when they come to me saying, I've wasted my time this, I've been doing this thing, and I actually don't like it. And I say to them, how brilliant that you've discovered that you don't like this before applying and studying it for years and costing your parents this enormous sum of money. Much better that you've worked that out.
It'll be even worse if they got to university and decided they didn't like
Yeah,
their
that's
subject.
hard, isn't it? That's really hard.
The long hours in the library are going to be lost a lot less enjoyable.
I think, James, the other questions, either just now or through the rest of your presentation, you've covered. So if you're happy to
If
take
anyone has
questions from the group.
Yes.
I was just wondering about the demographics. What is the consideration there when you're choosing an applicant?
Mhm.
Does that make a difference for international students?
So we have no quotas for international students. So no, we are generally looking for the best students around the world, regardless of their whatever background they're from. The only caveat to that is the medicine course. Now this is a UK. You'll find it a lot in pretty much all UK universities. There's a limit set by the UK government. In essence, we can only accept 16 international students for medicine every single year. So what makes one of our most competitive courses even more competitive is that we can only allow 16 people. So my general kind of advice is, unless you and your child and your teacher genuinely believes that your child is in the top 16 best medics in the world at that point, then perhaps consider something other than medicine. There are other routes into medicine. We do a biomedical sciences degree, we do biochemistry, and there are other kind of routes into it. But kind of think about how competitive those courses are. But in terms of all of our other courses, no, there's no quota. We're looking for the best students in the world. Yes.
When you say that you have, I think you have a number of colleges and universities, you have an option that you can apply for a particular college. How does it work if you apply for a particular college and do you only selectively then go for that college? So one would, or it would just better to apply for any college?
So, when we say apply to a college, the best way to describe it, you're just indicating a preference of where a student wants to go to. In actuality, when you apply to the university, it's not just going to be the college you apply to that will see your application. They're all going to see your application. Then the colleges have like a little conference, and they'll get together and they say, "Oh, we really like this student." So another college says, "Oh, we really like them as well." Really, a student isn't never going to have just one interview. They might have 1, 2, 3 colleges inviting them for an interview. And then about 30% of our students who do apply directly to a college don't actually end up at the college they applied to. They'll have an offer from a different college. But again, if you ask 99% of all the students which college is the best one, they'll say, my college is the best. You should all apply here. Because it is such a part of the student
It does
experience.
not matter, affect whether a student is offered a seat or not, depending on whether you have applied for a college.
It doesn't make any difference. Yes. Yes.
Which is the least competitive course?
Least competitive. Well, according to this list, it's Earth Sciences. Sorry. According to this one, it's Earth Sciences. But then again, it'll be more competitive if we have an applicant that is applying to what they think is the least competitive, but they have no interest in it. I do pick that up straight away, and I think this is not the type of subject for this student.
Which worries me because if I can spot it, I can be absolutely confident that the admissions team at Oxford can spot it.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to ask if you are to describe a model student that will probably get in at Oxford with an interest in aeronautical engineering or physics, how are you going to describe that person?
So,
I'm trying to prepare myself.
Sure. I said there's 2 things in common with all of our students. 1, they're very, very good at their subject. 2, they really, really enjoy their subject. An ideal student is someone who has worked hard throughout their kind of academic career, who kind of understands the topic they want to go into. They don't necessarily have to know what career they want to go into, We have a brilliant careers service at university. We can set that up afterwards. The time spent at university is going to be purely diving into their academic content. And if our tutors feel that they'll benefit from that education style, and they feel that they've got potential to not only be one of the best students of that cohort, but to thrive even more in that, then that's kind of the ideal student. Supercurricular activities. So I mean,
Would you have some, for
Yeah,
example,
so-
specific supercurricular?
So yeah,
for example?
physics clubs. I mean, are very kind of common. Olympiads, maths Olympiads, things like that. But then again, I'm careful not to prescribe things for students to go and do, because it's all to do with what students enjoy doing, and it shouldn't be something that's difficult or it should come naturally to students, because they generally love their subject and that's what they want to do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Yes.
right. Yeah, how can a student prepare for MMIs?
MMIs.
Yeah, the many interviews for the medicine program.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite familiar with MMI.
Oh, that's a specific medicine question. We students in MSO, and also we give them there are specific medicine sessions. And in the higher education webinar next week, there'll be lots of support on that that I can share.
Yeah, well, thank you, sorry.
Not all
Yeah.
universities interview in that format.
Yeah, so our medicine interview will just be a standard Oxford interview. We are looking for the same things towards our courses.
Whereas an MMI, for those who don't know, is like seating. So it's a different format.
Because over here, and then we'll,
So you did mention, thank you so much for the information, but you did mention that there's an open application.
yes.
And colleges offered. But is there some way to find out which college kind of specializes in a particular subject? Because within
Yeah.
Oxford, there are certain colleges which are kind of known for certain subjects.
Sure.
and they specialize.
The best way, to be honest, is just to have a look at the websites. The first thing you want to have a look at is just to make sure that the college offers the course that the student wants to apply to. Not all of our colleges offer all the same courses. You might have, so for example, Keble College is located right next to the science area. So it's literally across the road. So we have a lot of students that apply to science that want to study there because they can roll out of bed early in the morning and just go over to the lectures. I generally have a look on the website for kind of definitive list of courses that are offered there, and it kind of describes a bit of the ethos behind some colleges as well. But we've got over 30 colleges and PhDs. I won't be able to list them all. But yeah, that's the best route to go. Somewhere over here. Yes, please.
Got two questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any insights into new degree programs that are available currently? For example, evolving technologies.
At the University of Oxford? No, I don't. So Oxford University is a very traditional university, and our course list has been the same for years and years and years. I cannot see any new courses coming up soon. I think we've got computer science. That's probably our most common recent.
Second one, what are the international fees for British passport holders?
So the fee status is a little bit it's a little bit complicated. It's not necessarily on passport nationalities or kind of things like that. It's all to do with where a student is normally resident. It's quite hard and fast at Oxford. I think you've got it
Yeah, that's
as
okay.
well.
Just to help you out here, we have study UK options who come in regularly, and we also again will be sharing a video from them on our higher education webinar next week, just to help James out. Please reach out to me and I can put you in
Yeah.
contact.
Thank you.
If a child's in a boarding school in the UK, does
Yeah.
it have, in terms of fees, do you look at that? The parents are deciding here in Dubai.
So there's a
But
kind
they've
of
done like 5-6 years of boarding school.
potentially it's going to be on a case by case basis. The official rule that we kind of have is that a student has to be normally resident in the UK for 3 years prior to their enrolment date, but not for the purposes of education. So it might not fall under that.
I think
But
yes.
even if
Sorry,
you
I
have
think,
properties-
excuse me, I'm really sorry, just because of time constraints, we can't have any more home fees conversations. I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to.
It will all
As I
kind
said,
of
UK
depends on
study
what it is.
options is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
I think
I'll conclude the
James,
link.
just open
Yes, please.
Yeah, the law course that you offer, is
Yeah.
it international or is it?
So we have 4 different versions of our law course. We have just our standard law course, which is law in parentheses jurisprudence, which is generally to do with UK law. Kind of learn lots of things to do with UK law. Then we also have European law as well. So you have the option to study law with French, German, Italian, and I think Spanish, which has kind of placement in that as well. So it's generally focused around European law. but there are different options to take with it. Yes? We do, yes, we do look at GCSE grades. We try to look at them contextually. We will look at them again kind of holistically to kind of sense a student's kind of academic journey. The main thing we're going to be focusing on though is on their predicted grades. The key thing we're looking for is academic potential. We want evidence that they are already, very bright and intelligent young people, but we want potential. If perhaps your student hasn't got the best GCSE grades, or they would have liked to have got better, I wouldn't get too hung up on it. It will be something we look at, but it's not something we're going to make an offer on. Yes. We do have a fine art course. Yes. So that's taught at the Ruskin School of Art.
We have Jumeirah College students who attended, I think, about 5 years ago.
Amazing. Yeah. Yes, we've already got it. Yes, so that's the only thing that's different about the art course. So instead of written work, you will be asked to submit a portfolio of work, which will be used to assess candidates there. Again, lots of
I think
information
there's
on the
2
website.
more questions. I do apologise.
Okay.
I know in the beginning the whole
Mine is short.
will come in.
Yes,
In the
please.
website, do you have for each course how many students are going to be accepted?
Yes, we
The
do.
application number.
We do. Yeah. So on the website there is a thing that says how many spaces per year we have, how many applications we typically receive, what the acceptance rate is, how many people get invited to interview. Website, we put a lot of work into our website to make it as clear and transparent as possible. Okay. So
One
final
more,
question.
and I have one
Oh,
which I think
go on.
some interesting number of people that I looked at where most of the parents' year groups have come from. So I'd like to ask, I think we'll just do parents that haven't asked a question. Is there anyone who hasn't asked a question? Who hasn't heard a question before we finish up? On behalf of some of the year 9 parents that I know have attended, thank you so much, because I think it makes a real difference if you encourage those super critics early on. I know what I say to parents about which options they should choose. James, do you have any insights with regard to what students should take as a year 9 GCSE option? And we have not discussed this is not correct.
Okay. So again, it's going to depend on the course subject they want to go into. Sciences or any kind of STEM fields. Mathematics is always a really good one. Lots of our courses will require mathematics. Further maths as well if they're able to take that kind of a bit later on. If they want to go into a humanities field, essay writing subjects are kind of key. So it's all about kind of building up the skills to get them both through the application process, but also help them thrive, actually on course as well. So having a strong background in mathematics is brilliant for the STEM subject, and having a strong understanding of how to structure an essay, how to put forward an argument, and how to get their point across in a rather eloquent way. They're all brilliant skills they can build up now that they can perfect later on.
James, that's really helpful because